Hi everyone, Caitlin here and welcome to my video on time management in your online classroom. I've been teaching English as a second language for nearly 10 years, both in schools and online, and today I'd like to go over some tips that I hope will help you become an expert at managing your class. I'll start by dividing this video into two sections: time management outside your classroom and time management inside your classroom. It's important that these things are running smoothly in the background so that the actual class goes well. During the class, it is important to keep track of time so that you don't rush through it and you also don't go too slowly that you don't have time to finish the lesson. To manage time well outside of class, make sure that everything you need is already at your workspace. You've got your notes, your props, your water, your computer, its charger, and you. Make sure you've done your internet speed tests, your audio and video tests well before your class time begins. Make sure that you're dressed and you appear the way you want to be seen on camera. Open any useful windows so they're quick and easily accessible. You'll need the student information page, the student feedback page, your speed test. If you're doing any screen sharing in your class, if that's a possibility, then anything that you want to share is already open and downloaded previously. Any teacher notes that you have or instructions for your lesson plan. So if you're, for example, using a lesson for the first time and you want to keep a guide on the side so that you can make sure that you're following the instructions, then that should be open as well. I usually give about a half an hour before class to clock in, prepare my workspace with my props for the props that I need for my first class. I prepare myself. I have a snack or a meal to keep my energy up throughout the day of classes. Not giving the right amount of time for these things can really stress you out at the last minute when you're about to enter your class and you suddenly realize that your Bluetooth headset is not connected or it's not charged. Or your computer charger is in another room and you can't leave. So it's really important to make sure these things are ready before your class begins. You always want to make sure you have a backup. So keep a second set of headphones around in case your Bluetooth fails. You just want to hook them in. Or another microphone. The point is, know how long your personal preparation time is and stick to it. During short breaks between classes, stay close to your workspace. Better yet, don't plan on leaving the room. Hopefully anything you need you'll have taken care of beforehand. Otherwise, use timers on your phone or your watch to make sure that you are back on time to enter into your next class with your teacher screen ready, open, and waiting for the students before the lesson begins. Short breaks can also be used to quickly finish a short feedback memo for the student. While playing any videos during the class, if you are able to multitask briefly, it is a good opportunity to start assessing the student's ability on your student feedback page. So while the video is playing and you're kind of moving around and dancing, you can still on the side of your computer screen be checking and assessing that the student is engaged, that the student is competitive with their partner, all kinds of different, whatever the memo is asking you to assess for each student. So while the video is playing, you can kind of see, or you already know to this point, how they're doing in your class, and you can start to track certain things. Make sure you're not spending too much time away from the material, like for example on error correction, when you see a student is struggling, or technical difficulties. Move on to something different before you lose the student's interest in the class. Leave a short but necessary time for a hello and a goodbye, so there is time to encourage the student, practice their names, reward them, conclude the class, etc. Make sure there is a timer for the class, whether it's built into the platform that you're using or if it's a large clock icon that you have to download for your computer, but you need to be able to see the time in your screen and pay attention to it so that you know where you are in your lesson and when it's over in order to finish up and begin the next one. Choose a halfway point in your class so you can look at where you're at with your materials and decide if you should slow down or speed up your lesson. If you're using new materials, then I know it can be harder to gauge how long it can take for the first time. It can be hard to decide how long to spend on each activity. It can be difficult to know how long it takes from start to finish until you've had a chance to do it and practice it a few times. So do a practice run to see if it's enough on its own, if the lesson material is enough to fill your full lesson time, or if you should consider adding in an extra activity or whatever you would like to add in to your material. This can also be adjusted depending on the student's level. Have ideas ready in case you need to fill the material with more information or TPR, or if the student is quiet and not responding. On that note, some shy students may not say a word, and that could also make class go quickly. Don't waste too much time with material that a student won't respond to. It might be helpful to reword or use gestures instead, or change to the next idea to see if you can spark some interaction. The idea is to get a student interested, not to force them to respond to every instruction. If all else fails, then use creativity and go beyond the class materials to get a student to interact. Find something that they are interested in, and then when they are feeling a little bit more open, you can try to incorporate it back into the materials. For example, a student, in this case a child, who cannot sit still, ask, "What are you doing? Are you jumping? Can you jump? Can you run? Great! Now can you sit down? Can you touch your nose? Can you touch your eyes? Okay, now sit properly. Great! Now we're ready to start class." This is a very quick way to encourage a child who is distracted and full of energy to calm down and come back to the screen. You will gain a lot of positive interaction and at the same time lose less time with a bored, distracted, or inattentive student. On the other hand, if you have a very attentive student who appears interested but is just breezing through the materials and perhaps starting to feel a bit bored, then in order to slow down the class and avoid reaching the end too quickly, you would need to think of some activities to fill in between. For example, you're teaching a lesson and you have a student who is answering everything just quickly and doesn't appear as excited as they were at the start, or they just don't appear excited at all. You can add a challenge. You could find a word in the part of the materials where you're at in the moment and ask them to spell it, to write it, to show an example of it, to underline it, to circle it, to tell you more about the picture, create more discussion, the list goes on. It's a great way to get a student more involved and interact in a lesson and to make them think beyond what they already know or what they already studied for that particular lesson. In some platforms, there are options to allow students the ability to have control of the screen. This is perfect for allowing them to type or to underline, draw, or click on certain functions. If you see the class time is coming to an end, gauge a good ending point to close up your material. This could mean skipping ahead or jumping past new ideas that you just don't have time for. Always make time for rewards and discussion and goodbyes at the end as an important closure for your class. If you're running out of time but you rush through material just to get it done, then it can be a little bit confusing for students. It can feel fast, it can feel rushed, and it can just make the teacher look bad because you're not giving importance to the material and students' comprehension of the material. As with any job, the best way to learn is to do. You will have time to practice and to make improvements as you go. After you gain more experience working at home and creating your own work schedule and workspace, it will become a lot easier to get a feel for the time you need to prepare and how you use the time throughout. I hope my video can help shed some light on some helpful tips for managing your online class. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching and good luck!